Hi, everyone. I'm Cullen Haynes, and this is Law Live. My next guest, I'm sure will need no introduction, 8 years in family law. And today, the 16th of November, has launched his own law firm, Gale Family Law. I'm here to bring on the one, the only, and the incomparable David Gale. How are you today, David? And congratulations on your new law firm, sir.
Hey, Cullen, thank you so much for that. Now, because you,
No.
you mentioned the word Dale, save that as a question because that's something I get a lot, and there's a funny story with that.
It's just so easy to say because, like, Gale, Dale, like, we will bring it back, but you
Bring
do
it back.
share a very famous name in the movie scene, if I'm not mistaken. Sean Penn, and was it Susan
It was
Sarandon, The Life of David Gale?
it was unfortunately, and I'm not very proud of this. It was Kevin Spacey who's fallen into disrepute since that film came out. But I was at high school when that movie came out, and I still remember it. And we actually have a copy. When you mentioned it off camera before, I was scrambling through my garage trying to find it. But yeah, it's not a bad movie. Kate Winslet, I think too.
Oh, there you go. There's a few big names in there, but how does it feel? Gale Family Law, day one.
Yeah, it's pretty big. So this has been kind of, you know 8 years in the making in a sense. So yeah, it's a little bit surreal to be honest. When I put that
Oh,
post out,
I bet it would be.
yeah,
Yeah, well, I would encourage people to drop their comments and queries and whatnot. Is now 12:17 live on the 16th, Wednesday. So please put your questions in to David. And if they're more family law related, which is your specialty, please, I'm sure you'd welcome a cheeky DM as well. So please do so.
absolutely.
Uh, what's happening in your world otherwise, Monami? What's the other updates
Um,
that you can share?
so I mean, this is obviously the big thing. I guess after 8 years, I've launched my own practice, and that's I guess consumed me for quite a while. Obviously, winding down in my last employment, so working full time with a busy practice, doing that, making sure the clients are serviced there. But in my spare time, getting this on the road, many late nights and um, busy days. So that's been the main thing. But I guess the other things, I've got a young family. I'm coaching my son, both of my son's cricket team,
Oh,
and we'll be
wow.
off. Yeah, after this later, I'll go and pick them up and take them to their first game. We just had a downpour, so hopefully we'll still get on. So a whole lot of things happening when you've got young kids, as you're about to find out, Cullen.
I am. January 2023, Mon ami, cannot wait. What's your biggest tip about having children?
Oh my goodness, have an amazing wife. um, like seriously, I mean, I'm very involved with them, but yeah, my wife is absolutely amazing, and it's a real team effort. Yeah, be patient. Try to remember what you were like when you were a kid. I think is a good one. I'm not
That's a
saying
good point.
my kids, if they're ever watching this, are going to laugh, but yeah, I'm not saying um, we're perfect at parenting, but just trying to put yourself in their shoes as much as possible, I think is really important because they do see the world differently to adults.
Of course. And when things go wrong, their problems they do feel very big. So appreciate that too. My wife's a teacher, and some of the stories she tells me, you laugh, but life happens to these kids,
Yeah,
and they can be bigger than Ben Hur. But obviously, from the idea of switching gears a little bit, content and very important for a new business, not who knows you. You're very prolific on both LinkedIn and TikTok. I'd love to talk
yeah.
to you. How do you get all your ideas for all the content that you put out, my friend?
Well, I've got to give a lot. As corny as this sounds, I have to give a lot of credit to Gary Vaynerchuk. For people who
Oh,
still don't know who he
yes.
is, go and look him up. I know you're a fan, but one of the big things is the idea of document, don't create, which is I don't sit down and think, what am I going to write about today that's going to be popular? If I have an idea from something I'm doing, a person I've met, something that's come across my desk, uh, obviously we don't share client stories or anything like that that's confidential, but I guess the themes that come out of my work and my thoughts go into the content. And I always try to make it valuable for people because um, it has to have some kind of value. So explaining something maybe from a different point of view, showing what a day in the life is like. But really, yeah, it's just about having an idea and just posting that, documenting what you're actually doing.
No, that's a good point, actually. And I think he talks about that whole adage of give, 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 then ask.
That's right.
And if you're thoughtful enough to record your podcast, you put it out as a podcast, put it out as a video, chunk it down into bite-sized bits, which I know you do a lot as well. You reappropriate a lot of your content, which Gary Vee's a big. It's not
Yeah.
just one use; it's all uses.
It has to be very platform appropriate. Like what I put out on LinkedIn is very different to what I put out on TikTok. Like TikTok's really just a bit of fun. Like LinkedIn's a bit more of like the serious side of things. But if you're cross posting things, they really have to be adapted. And
No,
Gary Vee
that's a
talks
good point.
about that with captions and things like that. So, but yeah, very
No,
important to be
I think you
content
make a good point
appropriate.
there. Yeah, definitely, definitely. And James Dapachi's the same. Instagram, TikTok, he may give little thought in regard to, but he'll curate it a little bit more for our friends on LinkedIn. I think that's a good point.
Yeah. It's a bit like,
2023,
and by
yeah,
analogy, it's a bit like
yeah,
it's how you, like if you were like had some friends in your house or at a barbecue, think about how you would dress and how you would behave and the things you would talk about versus if you were like at a professional networking event representing your company, you're going to dress differently and talk differently. So I just see the social platforms as different venues where we have different personas almost and there's different standards. So
it's a good
I
point.
think it is actually very natural to be different on the different platforms.
Yeah, I like I'm endeared by what you're saying, and I think it resonates with not only is the content different that you're producing, but we as consumers of that content, people logging into TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, are different when we view those platforms. When you open up TikTok, I don't know what it is, but your mind changes, and you're suddenly open to people doing the "let me get a photo, let me pose for you now." Ooh, you like me now, and then all that other stuff that happens. You're
Yeah,
consuming the data in a different way. And I'm sure you'll come out with your own
absolutely.
version of that song on TikTok. You have to now. It's the expectations there. 2023, what is in store for David Gale in 2023?
Well, yeah, having just launched my practice, I think, almost by analogy, I've landed on the beach and now have to get in the trenches, and there'll be a lot of work, both at the back end and the front end. So, um, drilling down and building my networks, building out my work systems, and also on the marketing side, scaling up some of the content that I'm putting out and getting onto some different platforms.
Absolutely. Would you ever outsource that content creation or you prefer to keep it in house for now?
Possibly outsourcing some of it, but it's actually more complicated than it sounds because there has to be real collaboration between the person who's the professional artist and the like the professional like myself, because they need to know about the script, what to say, who you're appealing to. And one of my strategies in being quite hands-on in a lot of the content, apart from the fact I'm not about to go out and hire a big marketing team at the moment, is that
Yes.
I'm learning the nuts and bolts of how it all works and marketing strategies and how to use the platforms. And then if I ever do outsource, it means that collaboration is a lot easier. I can speak their language and I know
Yes.
more clearly how to give them instructions about what to prepare.
Good point. And you make it very clear. I noticed in one of your TikTok videos, which you pinned, and please follow David on TikTok and all the platforms. You got a video that says, this is not legal advice. They're general in nature. Do not go and act on what I'm telling you. How important is that message to convey that it's not a one size fits all, especially in something as hard and arduous and tailored as family law?
Yeah, that's right. It's definitely not a one size fits all. I'm kind of careful, and I don't like to. And someone was talking to me about the other day and said, "Oh, should you be saying that at every post?" And I'm very big on. I don't want to be saying that every time I have to open my camera or put any piece of content out. I think
Yes.
the way you deliver your message should be general in nature, but I
Yes.
think those disclaimers put in the right places are just a signpost to make it clear. But yeah, family law is definitely an area where it's very specific. So, for example, really until in my first appointment, I'd normally spend 1 hour to 1.5 hours with the client, really drilling down into their circumstances. And it's not until we go through all of that I'm really in a position to give them any advice. And then after that, often as the case evolves, and particularly, once we hear what the other party has to say, that advice might evolve again. So yeah, we do
Yes.
have to be very careful not to give a one size fits all answer. Just like you, if someone says, "Hey, Cullen, how much can a person borrow?" It's like, well, I've got to ask you a few questions first.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. I love using what the banks say. It's case by case. And we will get on
Yeah.
to that. Very careful, Gick. And every situation's different, especially with the rising rate market now. Some people can't even service their own current mortgage, let alone a new one. So
Yeah.
definitely anything more pertinent, come and speak to me directly. But is there any passion projects outside of work inside of work that you're working on at the moment that you can share with us?
So inside of work, one of the passion projects will eventually be to get onto YouTube. That will be, I think there's a bit of a
Oh, there we
niche to
go.
get into there. And part of my
Yes.
strategy in going on TikTok is to develop my skills. I wouldn't call them skills yet, but develop some video editing and just seeing what I'm like on camera. So YouTube's there. And then outside of work, it's really about trying to prioritize time with the family. So we're in cricket
Yes.
season now. So signing up as the coach is a good idea to force me to actually be there and make it. I can say, well, I have to be there. Sorry, I'm the coach, and it helps you set those boundaries. We've got, it's a bit like you mentioned one of the books, but one of the books behind me, Atomic Habits, which I know you're well aware of, is making it obvious. And so just outside my room, we've got the table tennis table set up
Good.
permanently in like our second lounge room, so we can just hop on there. So being active with things like that, because I'm sitting down and in the office for most of my working day, so trying to prioritize family time, but also physical activity.
Absolutely. That's so important. Is there any physical activity you like to do, whether it be running, swimming, cycling at the moment?
Okay, so I'm not into running. I know you are. I'll definitely go for a run with you, Cullen, if I pop up to Sydney. But I'm not
Please.
really normally a runner. I love walking, like bushwalking. But I'm kind of into, other than walking, I'm into, and just with that, I'm from Tasmania originally, so I've done
We won't
some
hold that
many
against you.
many beautiful. Yeah, I was actually born in Melbourne, so I don't have the scar. But apart from walking, I like kind of creative exercise. So like I do ice skating, table tennis. My wife and I have just started playing mixed volleyball down at
Wow.
Albert Park, and all of those are, I think, are fun kind of creative sports where there's a team element to some of them, especially volleyball and doubles table tennis. But there's also an individual element too. So
Yes.
they're kind of my favorite kinds of activities.
No, I think that's fantastic. You got to have an outlet at the end of a hard day or at the start of a busy day to
Yeah.
get your mind out of it. And sport is a great way to do that.
Yeah.
Any of those books behind you that you couldn't be without on a desert island? I know you
Uh,
had you Trust Me
oh,
Online, The
right.
Art of
Yeah.
War.
Look, that pile there is kind of more most of those are my I need to read these books. So of those that I've read, The Future of the Professions by Richard Susskind is a must for any lawyer who wants to think about the future of law. Um,
Yes.
Atomic Habits is like probably, I think, the best modern self-development book out there. It's so practical, and there's many books that you read and you wouldn't end up implementing, or just don't provide much beyond a bit of common sense. But Atomic Habits is absolute must read.
No, there's definitely some good insights there. There's one in particular, someone going to the gym early morning. Everyone thinks that going to the gym is the habit itself, but it's not. That he uses the example of someone who lived in New York, who, as you know, if you live in New York, it's quite hard to get anywhere. No, most people don't have cars. So her habit was actually getting in the taxi with her gym mag to go to the gym. As
Yeah,
long as she did that and she's in the taxi that she pre-ordered the night before, she would be able to get to the gym. And I think that is such a fantastic
it's
twist
huge.
on it. Yes.
Yeah, and even just like it mentions in the book something similar to that, and just even putting your shoes on in the morning, putting your running shoes on, that's the habit, and then it pulls you into that flow state of, well, once the running shoes are on, you're walking towards the door, and then you're out and you're running.
You're already out. I love that too. Straight in out of the bed, into your shoes. Let's go.
Yeah.
Well, I like Richard Susskind. He did present to the ABAs, the Australian Bar Association, that we were a part of in April at the Melbourne State Library. And I thought it was fantastic what he was talking about in terms of where it's going and, moving away from having the solemnity of the court. You can do that in a virtual setting. What do you see as the biggest future for family law? And I guess what would you like to see change in the future as well?
Wow, that's a huge question. I've got a few things. I think the biggest thing I would like to see change is less of a tech thing and just more of an attitude thing. So that is practitioners just becoming more cooperative and more focused on problem solving. And
Yes.
look, there are many, especially within the specialist family law community, there is a really strong movement towards that, and there are many practitioners doing great things. But there's a lot of room to move, and nowadays most practitioners would agree that we need to try to resolve things out of court. However, when you look at how a lot of these practitioners practice, they're still running their cases out of court like a court matter. So I think people need to shift a bit and realize, okay, we're not in court, and that means we don't have to follow exactly the same processes and have the same attitude that you would have in a court proceeding, and look at
That's a good
ways
point.
to fix the problem. So that would be one thing. Obviously, yeah, technology is a big part of things, but to me, technology is more about enabling. It's not a solution or an outcome in itself. It's more about enabling better customer service and more efficiency. So building in technology, and I think firms need to find a way to get that into their firm, because a lot of law firm owners, particularly the more senior ones, don't really have much idea about how to do that. And
No.
so they can look at getting a consultant, but obviously, and there's some great ones out there. Fiona McLeay, give a shout out to her. But
Shout out there.
at the same time, one thing I think firms might be overlooking is bringing in junior lawyers or even non-lawyer staff who actually do have a lot of these skills that they don't realize with
Yes.
technology.
It's a good point. The younger generation, the millennials coming in and actually helping on that could actually be of great benefit. And I was having this conversation with someone else in big law. I think there's an opportunity in there. I know there's a lot of gag orders on younger staff not to send anything out or put anything on the socials without higher ups approval. But you're all lawyers. You're all very smart. I'm sure you can give people the legs and their head to be able to go put their personal brand out there and as long as they're sensible, bring in some business by using their own unique creativity. I think it's such a marvelous thing, and there's some firms like Chamberlain's who do that very well. I know Jason Simons at Mills does that very well and encourages his team to do so I think that mindset is changing, but I look forward to that from my aspect of what I'd like to see change.
Yeah.
Looking at the balance of your 8-year career, what would be a lesson you'd like to impart for young lawyers thinking of getting into the profession or are in the profession already, they're wanting to make a name for themselves?
Well, there's so much I could say to young lawyers, and just before I go on, any young lawyers, feel free to connect with me on social media and DM me, and happy to have a chat and with you about things. I think the key thing is really knowing your why. Like, why are you doing law? And when I was a tutor at university, I'd often say in my first tutorial, so why is everyone doing law? And a lot of the answers were seriously like, oh, mum and dad, especially the international students, yeah, mum and dad want me to do it, or I don't know, or I wasn't particularly great at anything, but I was pretty good all around. But I think you need to know your why, and your why is not like, oh, I want to be like a tax specialist who specializes in, stamp duty or something like that. That's not your why. I think you need to know why. Like, what is it about you? What is it about your personality,
Correct.
interests, values that have got you into law? And then that's a base and a compass to navigate with. So
I think
that
that's so important. That's like Simon Sinek, know your why, right?
Yeah, that's
Very
right. It sounds a
important.
bit corny, but I think it's really true. And when I speak to a lot of law students, like, what should I do, David? Like, what area should I go into? What firm should I go to? It's like, if you, and look, those are hard questions, and I struggled with that too. But if you
100%.
knew more about your why, that would make those decisions easier. It's like, well, should you go to this big firm where you're going to be working 16 hours a day, but we'll get amazing experience, or should you do something else, or blah, 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 blah. So yeah, knowing why you're there and what your values are, and that then also like where you want to go in the future, is very important.
I think so too. I think so too. And if you were to have your, I guess, younger self sitting here, would you give that advice to yourself in terms of know your why?
Yeah, absolutely.
I
So
think that's
I think
fantastic.
I always knew I was going to be a lawyer though. So I was, it wasn't a hard decision for me, going into law. It was something very natural, but yeah, I'd absolutely say that.
No, and having known you for a number of years now and seen the passion that exudes from you in your videos and all your content, I think you wear your heart on your sleeve. And I haven't seen you in court because I haven't needed to be in court, but I'd imagine you're the same person in the courtroom with your clients and in real life, IRL. You're not someone who puts on a mask, as it were.
Yeah, that's right. Obviously, in court, there's a level of kind of decorum and formality
Of
you need to
course,
take, but absolutely, I do try to be myself. And yeah, with clients, yeah, absolutely. I speak very
especially.
freely and openly and try to build a really strong rapport with them. So yeah, I
No,
think that's really
that's
important to show
fantastic.
you're genuine.
Definitely. Be yourself. Everyone else is taken. Oscar Wilde. I'm sure you'd agree there, David. It's
Absolutely.
12:37. Please, if you're watching, this is live, Wednesday the 16th. If there's any burning questions you'd like to have this powerhouse answer, please do so in the next 5 minutes because we will be concluding our Law Live. But my last question to you, before we get into bonus questions there, David, from my side is, when all is said and done, and we leave, and you leave this mortal, I'll leave this mortal coil, how would you like to be remembered?
That is a very good question. Um, I would like to be remembered as someone courageous. And I don't think I am particularly courageous, but I think it's something I'd like to aspire to. And I think that courage is at the pinnacle of human virtues. And if you look at any great leader, whether it's a political leader, a religious leader, or just a hero from a story,
Yes.
the key thing they all had was courage. And I think that's something that, um, helps people and also earns respect, and is something that I think, yeah, if there was one thing I could be remembered by, it would be that. So hopefully
Courageous.
I can aspire to be a bit more courageous in my life, in all aspects.
I know. I think that's very endearing indeed there, David. And is the lion in The Wizard of Oz one of your favorite characters, would you say? Because he wants courage?
Um, I had never actually really thought of that, to be honest, but
Might
yeah,
be
I
your
guess
spirit animal.
I might have to rewatch that. So that movie always kind of gave me the creeps, to be honest.
There you go. Well, I think Wicked is coming back, Sydney and Melbourne and
Yeah.
whatnot. So you can have a cheeky check on that one. But where can people find you, David? Where are you hanging out the most these days?
Obviously, I'm on LinkedIn a lot, and anyone who DMs me there will get a reply. For people who are, clients or potential clients, there's a great way to contact me through my website. I have some links set up
Oh,
to
yes.
book straight into my calendar. So I use a Calendly app, which is integrated with the website. And so people
Yes.
can book in like an introductory telephone call, or they can book in a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting, or even book in a face-to-face appointment directly into the calendar, using the website. You might see there's not too much available for the face-to-faces in the next couple of weeks, because I am going to New South Wales for a week, but there's plenty
Very
there
good.
for the telephone and Zoom. And there's also just the email, which is david@galefamilylaw.com.au.
Familylaw.com.au. So I've got the website up here. Please jump on, book in, have a look, and even give some. It's fresh today, so please give some feedback to David
Oh
here. And
God.
we've got to talk about Dale. Where does this?
But, oh
Tell us this
yeah.
Dale story as well.
So with Dale, my whole life, quite just all the time, it happens many times a year. People just call me Dale, and I've been trying to work out how this happens, and it's not because of how I say my name, because sometimes I get emails from like the other lawyer saying, "Dear Dale," or something like that. And if someone out there studying psychology, please do your PhD or something on this topic. But there's some psychological thing that when people see David Gale, they just go, Dale.
Dale.
Hey, Dale.
No, I think it is. It's the mind shortening things, I think. It's very, very, very true, I think. So there you go. So David/Gale, it's been an honor having you on the show today, and wish you the very best of luck in your new firm, Gale Family Law. What I'll do, we're going to have some bonus questions for the subscribers, but thanks so much, and I really appreciate how generous with your time you've been today, mate.
Thanks, Cullen. You're a gentleman.
You're a good man. Speak soon. And anyone wanting to find out more about David, please, I urge you to get on the website. I'm going to bring it up again, galefamilylaw.com.au. That's been our episode of Law Live today. We'll be coming out with the podcast today and releasing it wherever you get your podcast. Hope all is well, and thanks so much, everyone. Bringing you back, Mr. Gale. If you were to explain your role to a 6-year-old, how would you do that?
Well, I don't need to think about this hypothetically, because I have a 6-year-old, and I also have an older son who was, I remember explaining it to him when he was 5. So I actually seriously told him that my job is telling stories. Because as a lawyer, if you really think about it, what you're doing most of the time is, I'm telling a narrative, whether that's in court or whether it's simply in a letter. You're crafting a narrative. You're understanding your client's story, and you're telling that story, and you're also understanding the other party's story. And I suppose whether it's that story is fact or fiction, hopefully it's more fact than fiction.
It's always factual on your side, David, please.
Exactly, is another question. But telling, I tell people stories. So if I had to really drill down and say, like, I think if it's a 5-year-old, I've got to be a bit careful talking about things like divorce, depending on the context. But I'd say,
yes,
I help mums and dads who are, who don't love each other anymore, sort out their home, and sort out what they're doing with their children, after they move out with each other, or something like that.
No, it's very good, and I think it's quite a fair way to describe it, and a very easy to understand if you were a child. And it kind of we're not whitewashing history or making it better than it sounds, but I think telling stories is so important, I think, too. Is there any, like, this is probably a bonus question, is there any sort of theatre you employ when you're in the courtroom, or any mentor feedback that you got about the way you tell a story?
For me, it's more about, I'm a bit of an extrovert, and for me, it's actually more about winding down my personality. So taking some deep breaths and remind myself, speak slowly, keep it simple. In court, a judge often, especially in a busy procedural kind of matter, the judge might be dealing with multiple cases. They haven't necessarily read everything, and you have to be very succinct and to the point. And
of course,
so it's more about, I think, for me, slowing down and not just winding that down a bit and keeping it simple. So, but for other people, it's different. Some people, they might actually need to do the opposite. They might actually need to add a little bit more energy into what they're saying. So,
they need to animate themselves a little bit more.
One thing, and one other thing, because I just from uni, when I was a tutor and I was tutoring mooting's like mock court, I'd always say to the students, you want to, when you're talking to a judge, it's actually a conversational tone. You want, like, the words you use are formal. You're using formal language and decorum, but the actual tone should be conversational. You're actually explaining something to them, not just speaking at them. You're speaking to them. So, that's probably the other thing I try to employ.
I love that, mate. Please, the court. Please listen to this legend, David Gale. I like our Rumpole of the Bailey. If you ever seen that show, I think he's getting chastised by the judge, and he just looks away, the barrister, and he goes, "Mr. Rumpole, are you listening?" He goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, Your Honor. I didn't want to interrupt the flow of your rebuke." And I just thought that was so good. But yes, absolutely. And the last bonus question, my friend, if you could give yourself advice at any age in your long life, what age would that be? And what advice would you give yourself?
Ooh, good question.
Yeah.
I think I'd go back to primary school when I was struggling in some ways with balancing, social things and where I was at that time, and just say, be yourself. Just be yourself. Like, you're not going to please everyone, but there are people out there who will become your good friends, and just
I love that.
stay with those people, and yeah, don't be afraid of who you are. Be courageous, I suppose, to follow that last point.
I
So,
love that.
yeah, I think that would definitely be what I'd do.
Fantastic points there, my friend. And if time travel is possible, I hope younger David is watching this in awe and is excited about the man you've become. And he'd be very proud, I'm sure. And best of luck to you, my friend. It's good to see good things happen to good people.
Thanks, Colin. Likewise. Keep in touch.
Appreciate it. And thank you for joining, everyone. Have a great Wednesday.